Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. This is Ostranauts, and this is my fourth episode in a tutorial series on how to play the game. And in this one, we are finally going to fly our ship. The previous episodes have been setting up a character and getting the supplies you need to get ready, and then a little bit of functionality about the ship and how things work. But now we are going to depart the KLEG station. We're going to find a ship to salvage, and we're going to fly to that ship and dock with it. So this will be all about navigating your ship. Okay, so time for our first flight. To use the nav console and to pilot the ship, you right-click on the nav console and you select Use. Before we do that, though, the first time we're going to link to PDA. And the reason we're going to link to PDA is we want to have our PDA connected to our ship. So we basically just tell it to connect to the nav station that's 2.5 meters away. And there we go. And here's our ship name, our registration, information about the ship itself. We can turn this on and off by clicking this guy. I want to leave it on. We can also rename the ship, though. That's the real important thing. So we're going to click here and type in Mo Chad. That's what our ship's going to be called for now. Hit enter. Now anywhere we see our ship name come up, it will show up as Mo Chad, and that's generally on the avionics. We're going to right click and now we're going to use. And here is our nav system. So first, this is a cheat sheet. You just click it to make it go away. It sits down here. If you need to reopen it, you click it again. But it gives you some basics. I'm going to run through these and give you the nickel tour, basically the cliff notes. We're going to do the cliff notes here. I want to point out one other thing, though. I'm going to hit escape twice, and I'm going to get to the options menu, basically. But you'll notice this user manual here. I'm going to click on the user manual, and there are two things in here that are more important than the others, and those are the environmental system. And I mentioned before that I'll do a video on the environment system at some point. We're just not going to do it now. But this shows you how the environmental system works, basically, and how you interact with it. But then there's also the nav console. The nav console manual is about 7 pages long, as it says here, and it shows you how you can use the nav console. There's a lot of neat things in here. What I think is fascinating is that it's all functional. All these things mean something. This is not just here for fluff. There are pieces of this game that are just there for fluff. That's absolutely true. This isn't one of them. You can set all these things just like it says here. You can use them, all the knobs, you can click on them to move them around, things like that. The switches, you click them to toggle them. And you can set up the nav system to do what you want. We're going to go ahead and fly through this to demonstrate how it works. And like I said, it's the cliff notes. I'm going to give you the cliff notes. Probably not the worst thing to read the definitions, though. That's a pretty good idea. It will show you what the different terms mean that might show up in other places and maybe help make some decisions on how things work. Okay, so again, that's by hitting escape and going to the in-game menus. This is where we also save our game, but the user manual, that's the big deal there. All right, going to get back in the seat here. Oh, we're at 0.5 time. I accidentally slowed it down. All right, we're going to leave time running. So this is our map. I'm scrolling out. This is the asteroid that KLEG is attached to. Okay, and then all these stars here, these are all derelict ships. So that is kind of our targets. And as we back out, you see there's more and more further away. These are some other ships that are in game, NPCs basically. Then there are other nav points. This is a nav point. These are nav points around the asteroid. And as we continue to back out, continue to zoom away, now we get to the solar system basically. So you start seeing there's other ports. I do not know what exactly is set up and usable in game right now. My understanding is ports are the next major milestone for the devs. I am content right now myself just hanging around the asteroid and scavenging what's there, but as you can see, the universe gets really, really big. And we keep going out, we keep going out, and keep going out. There we go. I think that's it. This might be, is that Earth? It's a buoy. Okay, I don't know what that is representing. I guess an asteroid or a comet or something. Okay. These buttons up here take you to different, and we're auto-saving, but these take you to different zooms. So this is the nearest zoom. This is what we're going to navigate from generally, but we can go to planetary. inner system and outer system. So there you have it. Go all the way into station. Okay, so the MoChad is what that's showing us. This is the shape of our ship. Gives you some ideas there. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is undock. There are two screens to the navigation screen. There's this one, and then if you click over here, you go to comms. Comms is important as well. This is our docking indicator. This will go away when we undock. This shows up when you're preparing to dock as you get closer, and then at some point you have to hit clamps, and we will do that shortly. But the communication system is kind of real. You click on the button you want, and you can call, in this case we can call the base, KLEG. There are ships out there that are represented with question marks. We can try to call one of those. Okay, and it's saying the target is unresponsive, so it's probably a derelict is what that's telling me. We can ask it for a ship status, and it won't give us one because nobody ever responded. But the nav system and the communication system is effectively hot. They work. They do what they say they're going to do. This particular system, you have to click over here to go back to the nav, and you have to click on the right to go to the comms. It's just one thing to know. In the character creation, you could cycle through them and just go in one direction. This one doesn't do that. Okay, to move around the map, when we click, it's going to select a target, and the target drifts, and that's because the station is moving inside the solar system. So we click this point in space, and what we're seeing is it moving on as everything else is drifting away. Okay, so that's one thing to know. We can drag the map to a certain extent, but right now I have the tracking mode set to the ship, so it's always going to return to the ship. If I left click once, it'll go to off, and then I can drag it and drop it. And this is what I was talking about, how the stuff actually works. The dials do things, and I really like that. Right click will turn it back. This one will also cycle all the way around, and we don't have a target, so it doesn't really have a major effect. It might, oh, well, we did have a target. It's where we clicked. So it'll just continue to follow that and return to it. We want ship for now. The other thing I want to demonstrate, we're going to fly the ship with WASD and Q and E. That's what we use to physically maneuver the ship. We can also use most of those keys on the map to move the map around, but we have to move it from RCS maneuvers to map controls. And now that's left, this is right, up, down. I don't think the other, well, actually they'll probably rotate. Yeah, they rotate the ship. So the controls work the same for moving the map around if you want to go look for something, or if you're piloting the ship, it will do the same thing. Now you're probably wondering how we pilot the ship in this particular universe. What we're going to do, so the first thing I'm going to do, I want to have it center on my ship. First thing we're going to do is undock. Let's do that first. I'm going to switch to comms. I can use local channel, but I think it's best to start learning how to use hail ship. They generally are listed in order of their distance. Since we're at the base is the first one listed. We're going to click that, and we're going to ask for docking clearance. Message sent, waiting for response, and basically they said we're free to take off, and then it'll pop to this. All I'm going to do is hit clamps. It will take a second. We're undocked. Now that beep, that's the proximity detector. Real quick though, I'm going to hit S to back away from the station. And if we come and look at this, I'm going to turn off that alarm so we don't have to listen to it. But if we come and look, I had hit S, and as you can see, we're very slowly moving away from the station. I'm going to hit it again. And you can see we're moving a little quicker. Now, we don't have a good way to judge our velocity right now. By the way, this is the fuel. I have 99% of my fuel left. I've used some. But once we click a target, these values will fill in. Now, the way I like to go with this is for my very first ship, because I don't have a salvaging license, my very first derelict, I like it to be one that's far away. I'm going to click on this one. It is 340 kilometers away. Space is tremendously small in this game, but that's okay. We would be flying for years if that weren't the case. What this shows me is my relative velocity to my target. It shows me the drift. This would be the horizontal side-to-side velocity, basically. It shows me the range, which we already talked about, the bearing. This is the bearing to that target. So basically, I want to point at that target so that I can approach it. Then finally, how long it's going to take us to get to the target at our current speed. It's going to take an extremely long time. This is measured in seconds. So what I want to do is turn the nose of my ship so that it points up here. Okay, so the bearing is telling me that if I turned to 114 degrees from where I'm at right now, that would point me directly at my target. So that would be a right turn. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm literally just going to tap E one time. Tap. As you'll see, that's starting to descend. And when it gets to 0, I'm going to hit R. R is supposed to cancel out the roll. It isn't perfect. It'll continue to roll sometimes. But if we come back and look at this, we see our ship is now pointing roughly in that direction. Now these multiple arrows that you see, that's basically showing the track of the ship right now. So my ship is not moving straight. It's moving kind of at an angle, and that's represented by this VCRS. We will need to look at the manual to see what VCRS stands for. It is escaping me right now. It's velocity something, I don't know. If I start to add forward thrust, these arrows will start to kind of kick forward. Okay, and that makes sense. And then I can also cancel out this side to side by going left and getting this to 0. And once I do that and get close to 0, you'll notice my ship will now fly in a relatively straight line. Then I can speed up time, and when I speed up time, those ship icons also kind of grow. And I think the idea is it wants to remind you, hey, you're moving fast. Okay, that's really what's going on here. I don't recall what this line is, so I'll have to look that up. 87 meters a second to go 300 kilometers, that's going to be 3,600 seconds. That's going to take forever in game perspective. So I'm going to accelerate more by hitting W. Now you'll notice we're going to pass really close to that ship, more closely than I want. So I'm going to use the left a little bit to deviate from it. As long as it's not a really huge ship, we should miss it. We did. That was closer than I would like. You don't want to come that close, honestly. If you hit things, it will destroy your ship. And we can kill that sound by hitting clear. I'm going to go ahead and go back to a 0 here, as close as I can get. That's close enough. But you'll notice our relative velocity is now up to 500. That's because I had fast forwarded while I was accelerating it. That will make a big difference. But we'll be there in 500 seconds now. That's a little under 10 minutes. And we can fast forward to up to 16 times. So what I tend to do in this case, I'm going to take the next 7 minutes, so until 1523. I'm going to close out of here, and I'm going to hit repair and have him fix things until 1523. We're going to do 22. I don't want to cut it too close. Okay, and I'm going to start slowing that down a little bit. We're probably fine, but with moving at 500 meters a second, that is really, really fast. We only get proximity alarms at 5 kilometers. By the time I get into my seat to adjust the velocity in that, we will have slammed into our target at 500 kilometers. It takes 10 seconds to go 5K. So right now it's telling us the range is 83 and we'll be there in 160 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and start to slow us down. My procedure, and everybody does it different, I like to be doing about 200 meters a second when I'm getting close. That, in my mind, and for my reflexes and my comfort level, that's plenty of time to go ahead and run it at 16 times, and as soon as it closes to 5, it will auto slow down the time dilation down to 1 time, and it'll give me time to go to the comms to show you how we do the dock. Hey there, Chad the editor here. Something that I noticed that might make your life a little easier for the first time you're docking. I didn't correct for it, but that VCRS value in the middle of the target stack there is at 6.87 right now. It is creeping up, and I should have noticed that. You want to try to keep that as close to 0 as possible before switching over to the docking mode, which you're going to see in just a minute. It will allow the target to stay more centered for you, and you will have to do less correction. So for your first time, before you actually get this close, try to get that as close to 0 as possible. It started at 0, but as we get closer and closer to the target, it's drifted a little more. I think it gets up to about 15 by the time I switch over to docking. When we switch over to docking, you're going to see I get a big wrong way warning, and this adjusting this closer to 0 will prevent that. It doesn't have to be exactly 0, you just want it close. It's certainly not climbing like mine is right now. So that'll kind of prevent some of the stuff you're going to see in a minute from being as complicated as it is. All right, enjoy the rest of the video. And we're getting close now. We're down to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and there's the proximity alarm. So I turn off the proximity alarm. I'll go ahead and slow down a little bit now. I'm going to slow this to 150. Turning that off, a little slower than 150, we're going to go down to 100. I'll leave it a little above 100. We're going to say hail ship. We want the ship that's 3 kilometers away, and there's nobody on it, so we're going to initiate uncontrolled dock. And that's going to pop up the docking symbol. Okay, I went ahead and paused the game real quick to talk about this symbol. Basically, there's going to be that circle, there's going to be another circle that we're going to point to. Right now, we're way off target from it, which is a little unusual. Usually it comes in and you see it on the screen here. So we're going to have to go chase it down a little bit. But the things that are important, this is how fast we're going. We need to be going under 100 in order to dock. At least that's my understanding. It will stay yellow until we do that. And the range, we can dock once we're within, I think it's different for different reasons, but generally about 200 meters is where we can really start to expect it to say we can dock. And at our current speed, that gives us 18 seconds of real time. Obviously, if we speed that up, that's not going to help. Let's go ahead and just click it off of pause, and I'm going to use left, so A, to try to bring the target into visual. So I'm holding that down, which isn't necessarily a great idea. Okay, there it is. With this particular system, when you hold something down, it will continue to add thrust in that direction. So if it had been really far off, it could have just shot right by and I might not have even seen it. Then the other thing to consider, I'm going to slow this way down, make it more obvious. You'll notice it's drifting right now, and I'm hitting left. It isn't really changing it. It might slow it down some, but it's not changing it. Okay, and that's, so I'm going to hit R to center it, and you'll notice that doesn't even actually completely center it. So to make a long story short, holding something will continue to thrust it, and it's going to be accelerating in that direction, not just turning. It's not like turning a steering wheel. It's literally an acceleration in a specific direction, so it's a vector. Okay, so the idea is I want to get this centered in this. So it's got these little rectangles. It's kind of hard to see which ones are which. I guess they might be a different color. I can't quite tell. The way I tend to line it up is I try to make this circle sit right in the middle of this cross as perfectly as I can, and then just keep it still. So we're going a little fast. The first thing I'm going to do is, well, first I want to put back to 1 speed. We only have 7 seconds. That's actually not great. I need to slow down quickly. So we're going to slow down as much as we can. I mean, we're doing 20 now. And then I'm just going to use left and right and R to try to freeze it. R is working here. That's good. I'm not quite sure what R is supposed to do. It doesn't always seem to cancel your... I thought it was supposed to be like a null. Like it nulls out your roll and everything, but it doesn't always do that. Okay. There's the clamp. We're going to hit clamp, and I think I barely got it in time. We were almost at range 0. I don't know why it took that long to grab it this time. Usually I see it, like I said, at somewhere between 100 and 200 meters. That time it didn't pop up until like 70 meters. So that was a little close. But we are now docked. Okay. From here, what I typically will do is switch over to nav and zoom in, and I can see what kind of ship I'm dealing with. So this is my ship. This is the ship we are attached to. So it is a really small ship. So there's not going to be a reactor on this ship, so we're not going to make a lot of money, but we want to go and see if there's anything valuable. There could be food. We always are going to need food. There could be water. There could be firearms. Guns are not the worst thing to have to defend yourself. There's other weapons other than the tack knife. You can maybe find some weapons sometimes. And generally anything that's worth salvaging, we will grab and put on our ship. We're going to do that in the next episode, and I hope you learned something. that's your navigation. We will also navigate back to the station. I'll show how that works. It's pretty much the same process. We'll do that in an upcoming episode after we do some salvaging in the next. I want to thank you for your time. And until next time, fair travels.